Hello everybody and welcome to the studio. My name is Mel and I'm here to teach you how to paint. So I'm really excited to have you here. If you've painted with me before, welcome back. I'm really glad that you came back. And if you're here for the first time, a very hearty welcome. I'm glad you've chosen to paint with me. I'm sure you're going to have a good time. I know I will. So today we are going to be working on Mer-me. And I named it Mer-me because whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl, or somewhere in between, your mermaid can be exactly the way that you want it to be to represent you. So you can decorate your mermaid however you like. I'm going to show you some simple techniques and we'll go from there. So the first thing that we should do is go over the equipment that we're using. If you've ordered my Paint at Home kit, you've got just about everything you need there. If you just got the video, there was a list you received in the email with everything that you'll need to paint Mer-me. So let's just go through the supplies real quick and then we'll get to painting. First, I have my palette of paint. I prefer to use a plastic surface as a palette. You can also use wax paper or parchment paper. I oftentimes use the lid of an old takeout container because then I can just snap the bottom on it and toss it in the fridge. It lasts forever. But the advantage to using plastic over paper is that when you're mixing paint on paper, you tend to paint your plate and you run out of paint. So we've only got 4 colors today, super simple. We've got white, red, blue, and green. And with those, we'll be able to make everything we need to paint our mer fin here and tail. I've got 2 brushes. They're in my water right now. So you'll need a jar or an old glass with some cool water. And I use a wash rag to dry my paintbrush on. That way I can just use it over and over again, but a paper towel will work great. So let me just wipe these off so you can see our brushes. We've got a big brush with a flat top, and we've got a small brush with a pointy tip. And that's what I'm going to call them, your big brush and your little brush. That's it, pretty simple. I like to keep mine in my water when I'm not painting, and that way I don't accidentally leave it out. It dries up and gets real stiff, then you can't use it again. Sticks are hard to paint with, so save a brush and keep it in the water for now. I've got my canvas here, and next to it is the original that we're going to be working on. So as we go through our time together today, I'm going to point to the original and show you what part of the painting it is that we're going to work on. And then I'll tell you how to do that. I'll tell you what brush to use, what color to use when we have to make a color. I'm going to give you the recipe and show you what it looks like. And then I'm going to show you how to do the step here on my canvas. And you'll be able to see everything in real time. And because we're painting together on YouTube, all you have to do is pause, and that'll give you plenty of time to get caught up. So you'll never have to feel rushed. The other really cool thing about painting on YouTube is that if you pause it, you can zoom in and then you can see the detail on your screen a lot better. So there are some real advantages to painting with me on YouTube versus when we painted together in the studio. Oh, a couple more things I forgot. I have my silver paint pen, but we don't need that quite yet. And I've got a pencil and my stencil. They rhyme. So we're going to use the stencil to help us trace out the shape of our mer tail. And we'll use the pencil to draw around it, and then we'll get to painting. So once you get yourself all set up, make sure you have a drink or a snack. I don't need you getting hangry. Come on back and we'll get rolling right away. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so I'm all set up now. Hopefully you are too. And I'm going to start by using my pencil and my stencil to sketch out the shape of my mer-me tail. So we just want to arrange our stencil on our canvas. It might be easier if you lay it flat on the table for this part, but I'm going to keep mine upright so that I can show you how to do it on the camera. And I'm just lining my stencil up here so that you can see both parts of the fin and then where it comes down with the body off the bottom of my canvas. And a little piece of mine is going off the edge because I've got mine taped to a board, just so that it can be upright and you can see it, because I paint on paper while you guys are painting on canvas. So I have to tape mine to a board. That's why it's got the blue tape all around it. but you don't have to worry about that. All right, little piece going off the edge, that's okay. And I'm just tracing around. It doesn't need to be perfect. And one thing I did is when I made the stencil, I made it just a little bit skinnier than the mer tail here. Let me show you. It's just a little bit thinner. That way, as we paint, it can kind of grow a little bit in case we get outside of the lines just a touch. So now, my tail is there. And that's it. That's all I need to do. I know it's a little hard for you to see. I'll bring it up. Can you see my lines there? I'm going to trace around them real soon, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so once you have everything stenciled out onto your board, we're going to mix up some blue-green and start painting in the entirety of the fin and the tail. So get yourself sketched out and then come back and we'll get rolling and we'll start working on our painting. All right, are you ready to paint? This is the good part. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and use that to scoop up some blue and some green, and that's going to be the base color of my mermaid. And we can always adjust that if you want to add more blue or more green. You'll get slightly different versions of the same color. So take a look as you're mixing and see which one you like, and then you can adjust it. I'm going to use my brush and take a scoop of blue, about the size of an olive, you know, the ones you put on your finger at Thanksgiving. And then without cleaning it, I'm just going to come over to the edge of the green and pick up the same amount. I like to start with even amounts. That way I can adjust it either way depending on what I want to do. The other thing I do, and I'll bring this close so you can see better, is I leave some swirl of that blue and green in there together. And then as I paint it, I get different shades of the same color and it looks quite lovely. So let's start. Don't need to clean my brush. It's got that blue and green mix on it. And I just start by using the skinny edge of the brush to come along and start outlining my line. I'm going to do that first so that it's a little bit easier for you to see. And if your paint feels a little thick and it's not pulling nice and smooth across your canvas, you can just barely dip the tip of those bristles in your water, and then you'll be able to come back and your paint will be just a little bit thinner and it'll move nice and smoothly. So you can see I'm just going around the edge, and then I'll start to fill it in. And it may look a little scratchy, your paint. It may have brush strokes where you can see different lines. That's good stuff, especially here in the tail, right on that very thin part. Because if I pull those strokes nice and long from edge to edge, those lines will give that fin a little bit of texture. You can see what I'm talking about there. Sorry, I have a little bit of a scratchy throat today. I think it's from my allergies. All right, now I'm going to come up to the other side and just outline it. If you're still working on the other part of your fin, that's okay. I'm almost always going to paint faster than you because that's my job. But remember, you can always hit the pause button if you need to. All right, and then fill that in. And remember, I'm using those long strokes so that as I get the little brush strokes in my paint, they help me with that texture of the fin. Using a little bit of water to help me out. Now you can see that my color today is a little bit different than this color, and that's okay. Every time we mix paint, we're going to get just a slightly different version of it. And that's one of the joys and beautiful things about painting, is that even if we paint the same painting 20 times, it's always going to be just a little bit different. Now we're going to just continue down, and I'm working my way around that edge again, just outlining my mertail here. Ooh, there I got a little streak of blue. That's pretty. I love when that happens, when you get a darker streak of green or a darker streak of blue. It's always fun. It's like magic. Everything's just a little bit different. And now I'm just going to paint the rest of this thing all the way through. Little bits of water with your paint. We don't want it to be runny. It should still be creamy, but it should just glide nice and smoothly across your canvas. We're almost done here. Just going to finish up this base coat. And remember, we're going to come in and paint all of these scales. So we really won't see anything that we're painting now. We're doing it to just provide what we call an undercoat to our painting, so that as we add the details, there's a base layer of paint there for the new layer of paint to grab onto, and it also just sort of smooths out your canvas and gives a little more oomph to the next layers that we paint. Okay, and this is where I want to be. Everything's just filled in. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. You just want a fairly consistent layer, but you're going to have a few spots that are a little lighter and a little darker. And that's going to happen with this first layer of paint, so we're not going to fuss about it too much. So go ahead and finish painting in your mertail, and when you're done, come back and see me, and we're going to start painting in the blue of the ocean, okay? All right, I'll see you in just a minute. All right, are you ready to paint the ocean? The first thing I want to do is clean out my big brush. You can see my paint water's already turning blue from dropping that big brush with all that paint in there. And what I'm going to do is just gently sweep the bottom of my cup or jar. Just sweep back and forth like you're washing the bottom of that cup. And that's going to wiggle those bristles around and make them let go of all the paint they're holding on to. And then we're just going to drag those bristles across the edge just to get out any extra water, like you're scraping the jar on the side of the jelly, or scraping the butter knife on the side of the jelly jar. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, and once that's all done, I just like to pat it onto my rag and dry it off. Although it's hard for mine to absorb anything anymore because it's got so many layers of paint on it. Okay, so next I want to start working on my ocean. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick up a small scoop of blue and a small scoop of white and stir those together. Equal parts of blue and white. There we go. And then, just like before, I'm going to dip my brush in that water a little bit and work that water right into that blue and white paint, just a little. Now, with this mix, I'm going to start right up along the edge of my tail. Now, if your tail is still really wet, you want to be really careful. You might even want to hit it with a blow dryer a little. And I'm just carefully coming along the edge of my tail. Remember, if this is still wet, we can sort of smudge it a little. So take your time. You're not in a hurry, are you? Good. Because this is supposed to be our relaxing time. There we go. And I'm just coming around as wide as this brush is. Just that little bit of length. And I'm only doing one side of my mermaid. I'm going to do the right side, and then I'll do the left side, and then I'll do the top. Because I want to work faster than my paint dries. So what I'm going to do next is, instead of continuing with my blue and white mix, I'm just going to come over and grab a little dip of the dark blue by itself and go right back over this. And you'll see it just melts and create streaks of this darker blue. This is going to create a little bit of shadow for us. Because think about your shadow, right? Your body sort of blocks the light and creates your shadow on the sidewalk or the wall. And from there, I'm just going to get different streaks out of my paintbrush of darker blue and lighter blue. And after I'm happy with it, I can just start picking up that blue and white mix. So let me go over it again just in case you got confused, because I know that's a lot. First, we put down the blue and white mix close to our tail. And the reason we do that is we want a little bit of wet paint there for the dark blue by itself to sort of melt and blend into. So we did the blue and white mix, a little bit of the dark blue by itself, and now we're going back to that blue and white mix and working our way out toward the edge. Now, if it gets a little dark or you want it a little lighter once in a while, you can just pick up a little bit of white, because that will give you lighter streaks to contrast with your darker streaks. So every once in a while, I just pick up a little white, and you can see it just makes a lighter blue there, and we can streak some of that through. And I like to follow this shape of my line. But you don't have to. You can just sweep back and forth and fill this in. But I like the effect that I get in my paint as I just keep following that shape as I come down, sort of like in little rows. And where I put a little bit of that white, I'm going to get some blending and some streaking, just like I did with the dark. Keep working my way through. There we go. Just gonna sort of fill that in, and then I can keep coming with my little wispy, long strokes following that wave. And I think here I'm even going to bring in a little bit more dark because it got really light. So just picking up whatever shade of blue I want, whether it's dark, the medium mix that we made, or adding some white to it. You get all sorts of watery movement there. Do you see how that looks? That's super cool. The original didn't even come out that cool. I like this one much better. Yeah, Mel approved. Okay, so you want to continue working until you have this space filled in. And then when you're ready, come back and we'll start working on this other space here on the left. So I'll see you in just a couple moments, okay? All right, I'm ready to start on the left side. Same process. I'm not going to clean my brush because I'm using the same color, but I did start to run out of my mix. So I'm going to take a scoop of blue and a scoop of white, swirl those together, and then follow the same process. Let's see if we remember what it is. Blue and white mix first, right along that edge. There we go. Boop. And remember, you want to take your time with this. You want to have those lines nice and clean. There we go. First layer of blue and white. Now I'm going to grab the blue all by itself and go right over, retracing my brush strokes. And once you're happy with how much dark you have, you can start alternating between your medium blue and some white. And you're going to get those streaks, and those streaks are awesome. They're what makes the water look like it's moving, or that the light is shining down from the surface to the sea. But it creates sort of a wake in the water, following the movement of our mer-person, in my case a mermaid, as she swims down to the bottom of the ocean. And I'm going to use a little bit more white up on the top because she's diving down, so the light's coming from up above and giving us these streaks here. There we go. Don't want that paint to get too thick. So let me give you an up-close look. There we go. Those streaks are beautiful, aren't they? And I'm going to move up to the top. You know the drill. You can pause if you need to. But light blue, or medium blue, excuse me, blue and white mix. Just right along that edge, taking my time to be careful. There we go. Now a little bit of dark blue right along that same path. Just like that. And then a little bit of white. Just little bits at a time, because we can always go back and add more, but we can't take it out. So I'm just swirling across the top here, trying not to get into that green. It's getting a little messy. There we go. Now my brush has a lot of paint in it, so every once in a while it is a good idea, if you feel like your brush is just getting really full, just stop and give it a little rinse, pat it dry. Now I feel like with that cleaner brush, if I come back in and add my streaks, I don't lose them as quickly. With too much paint in my brush, it all just sort of smears. Let's see, there we go. I'm gonna come from the top and just pull down. There we go. Just little bits. I think that works better. Okay. There we go. So this is a really good point to just pause the video, get yourself caught up. And what we want to do is let this entire surface dry before we do anything else. We have 2 points in our painting where we want to do that. We're going to let this dry before we start working on our scales. And once our scales are in, we want to let it dry again before we use our silver paint pen. So what we're going to do is, you can always get a blow dryer and blow dry it real quick. Or if you live where it's warm outside and sunny, just go drop it outside. The sunshine will take care of it. So get yourself to this point, get your canvas dry, have a little break, and then come back and see me when you're ready. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. All right, I'm back. Are you ready? Now we're going to put the scales on our fin. So I've grabbed a piece of white chalk, and I'm going to make sure to throw one in your kits, because that's a really useful thing to have for this step. But you can also use a pencil. Remember, the most important thing is that your canvas is completely dry so that you don't end up smearing that paint. But what I want to do is talk about this tail. Do you see these sort of half circle shapes? They've got a little bit of more of a peak, like a hill. If we start at the bottom drawing these in with our chalk or our pencil, we can offset each row. So we would go 1, 2, 3, and then take the curve over the little valley of the ones below. And we'll just keep building until we work our way out. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Put that guy back. Now they're going to be bigger down on the bottom and get smaller as they work their way up. And they don't all have to be exactly the same, because our fingers aren't all exactly the same, right? Our toes aren't. Sure, a mermaid's scales on her tail, or his tail, are going to be like that. So I've got my chalk, and I'm just coming down along the bottom, and I'm going to do 1, 2, I think I can fit 3 right there to that edge. And the nice thing about using chalk is that you can just take a little piece of your washcloth or your paper towel and then wipe it away with a little bit of water. It's pretty nifty, huh? All right, so we've got one row here. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to start in between the tops of the previous row. So I'm going to come in and put in another row like that. And on the edge, I just make it go to the edge. Now here on the left, I'm going to bring that up and out of our point of view where we can't see it. And we're just going to continue this way. And with each row, they might get a little bit smaller. But remember, the smaller you make them, the more you have to paint. So I'm a big fan of making them a little bit bigger. Not gonna lie, I'm a little lazy, and it just makes it easier. There we go. And when I get down here to where there's 2 at the end, I'm just gonna put 1. So you can see how they transition up, like snake skin just like that. Or a fish, just scaling right up. So take your time with that. Use a little water and paper towel to erase the lines. Oops, sorry, got a reflection there. To replace the lines where you don't like them, and get it set to where you're satisfied with it, because once we start painting it, then it's there for good. All right, are you ready? It's time. I am going to use my big brush for this, and the first thing I want to do is mix up some different colors. We can make all sorts of colors with what we've got. We know that blue and green gives us a teal or a turquoise, and you can add white to that to make it lighter and brighter. We can put white and red together to make a pink, or white and blue together to make a lighter blue, or we can mix red and blue together to get purple. And again, with purple, we can add white to it and make it different colors. So we're going to mix these up however you like. I start by painting in one color at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my blue-green, because that's what most of my fins are or my scales are going to be. Some variation of that blue-green. And I have some left from when I painted the mermaid. If you need some, it's going to be the green and the blue. But I'm just going to take a little bit of this color on my big brush, which is nice and clean, and just start picking a few of these scales to paint in. So I go right up over that chalk and start working my way down. And just fill it in, just like we're coloring or doing painting by numbers, except there's no number and you get to pick where you put it. So I'm probably going to do about, I don't know, 3/4 of them in this blue-green. And I just go right in with my chalk, with my brush right over my chalk, and fill them in. Now once I've done a couple, I'm going to stop. I've done 1, 2, 3. And the reason I'm stopping is I don't want to work any faster than my paint dries. I want to be able to come in and add little bits of white or blue or green to this while it's still wet. And that will allow it to blend. Remember how the background melted and blended together? We're going to do that here. So when you're ready, just take your brush with that blue-green mix on it and grab a tiny little dip in the white. And what you can do is come right over that top edge and let that blend in. And as we work our way down, it just gets a little bit darker. We don't have to fuss with it too much. The more we fuss with it, the more it's going to turn into one color. So let me show you again over here. Just a tiny bit of white coming right along that edge. And then I'm going to stop and wipe off my brush on my paper towel to get that extra white off. And just bring a little bit of that white down. I want every little scale to be just a little bit different than the other. And that's going to naturally happen because it's really hard for us to make the same exact thing every time as we're painting. 1, 2, 3. Let me pull those up so you can see the highlights there. I've got that little bit of lightness and then it gets darker as it goes down. And I can keep working my way up the tail doing this. Remember, I'm probably gonna do, I don't know, 7 out of every 10 like this, because I want the purple or the pinks to be little pops of bright color that just sort of surprise you there and make it just a little bit more unique and different. So I've done a whole little section here of like 4. But I'm going to stop, get my little bit of white, and go over them. Just create that little touch of highlight there. Just like that. That's all we need. Just little bits. And this is the part where you just get to relax and take your time with it. A few more of these. Let's see. Pick where you want to put them. Yours are going to be in different spots than mine, and that's okay. Everyone should be just a little bit different. Keep working our way up. There we go. So I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So maybe about half or a little more than half are done in the green. In that blue-green mix. You could mix just some white and green if you wanted and get a much lighter color. That would be cool too. And remember, if your brush is getting gloppy, go ahead and give it a little bit of a rinse. And then sometimes I like to just use an empty brush with no paint to help me blend a little bit if I'm having trouble. Now I need a little white here, but I'm just working my way through, following that same technique. Doesn't matter what color I'm using, that's the technique we're using. We're going to put our base color in and then just add a little bit of white. Now remember, the more we fuss with these, the funkier they get. So I'm probably going to try to quit here. But sometimes it's hard. I know, it's hard to stop messing with things. I keep wanting to add just little bits more of my highlight. And if you like that highlight and the way it sort of creates that scallop or curve there on the edge, you can really take your time and go over them a lot. Just remember, the more you blend, the more likely things are to become one color. There we go. Okay, so now I think I'm going to try this same technique, but with blue. So let's see what happens there. Cleaned my brush, and I'm going to take just a little bit of blue all by itself and paint in that blue. I'm going to paint in the whole shape of the scale with just blue. And then, you guessed it, grab just a little bit of white, come up along that edge. If it's too bright, stop and wipe it off. And then just let it fade. And we can add as many blue ones as we want. If the spots are getting a little tight for you to fit your paintbrush in, that's why we have this smaller one. And you can just grab that. It's got that nice pointy tip, and that will help you get in those little pointy sections. And I'll show you what blending with this one looks like. Tiny bit of white on the tip. Just come right along that edge. Oops, that's a lot of white. And then I'm just going to try to bring that down toward the middle, sweeping around that curve, letting it stay light and bright on the round part, and it gets darker as it comes down to the other pieces. And little bright streaks are okay. That's good stuff. So if you want, you can even come in and add a few little bright pieces. And that helps, right? All right, let me do one more blue one. Let's see. We'll put it here. Just on that edge. There we go. Little bit of white. So what color should we do next? I think we're going to do purple next. What do you think? That's a good one. Let's do some purple. So to make purple, we're going to mix together some red and blue. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. Pause the video. Come back to me when you're ready. I'll still be here, I promise. So equal parts of red and blue are going to give me some purple. And I don't need a lot, just a little bit. Let's make this fin purple. Paint that all in. And I'm doing this with the small brush now with that pointy tip, just because it makes it a little bit easier to get up next to the next guy as I'm working my way through. So a little bit of white here, just a little bit along the curved edge. I probably sound like a broken record. And work your way down, letting it just fade away, that brightness. All right, let's do a couple more of the purple, and then we'll do some pink. This guy should be purple over here on the edge. Sometimes we only see half of the scale because it wraps around, and that's okay. It's supposed to. Just little bits of white on the end, bringing it down. Okay, one more purple. Let's see, because that'll give me 1 pink, 2 pink, 3 pink. Maybe I'll do some plain green, or I know, I'll do some turquoise. That'll be great. Sorry, when I get excited, I sing. And I'm not any good at it, but I'm good at being excited. All right. Fill in my last purple one. And now I want to rush because I'm really excited about making that teal turquoisey light color. So last one, paint it in the purple, grab in that white, and just blend in that little bit of highlight there on the end. There you go. How's it look? Pretty good? I think I'm pretty happy with it. There we go. All right, gave my brush a rinse. And to make the teal, I'm just going to use this blue-green mix that we've been using all along. And I'm going to add some white to it. And you can see as I add that white, it turns into a whole new version of that same color. A little bit more so you can see. Ooh, that's nice. Looks like mouthwash. All right, let's try that. I'm going to put that right here. There we go. And remember, we're going to go over these connecting lines with our silver paint pen. So if they're not perfect when we paint them in, we can hide those mistakes. Sort of like when your mom tells you to clean your room and you hide everything under the bed, right? Same idea. Okay. So there's my minty turquoise or teal, a little bit of white there. Ooh, that one's really bright, isn't it? Bring that down. Just a little bit. I think I'm going to do another one in this color. Let's see. Let's do one here. Just filling in this space. Being careful not to mess with those edges. Nice and easy. Filling that in. And I think we're going to do one more here. That way we have a nice variety of all these different colors. There we go. Now I'm going to try to add in that little bit of white. Okay. And that's that. Now at this point, if these are starting to look a little dark, one thing I like to do, we can take this lighter turquoise color and just put little bits of that on these other scales if we want. It's another way to add a little highlight, give it a little bit of shape. But remember, we are going to come back in with our silver paint pen and do some highlighting with that. So just little bits. Give your mermaid some nice shape here. There we go. Mermaid, merme, merman. Okay. Looking pretty good. Last color I'm going to make is some pink. So I'm going to cleaned my brush. I'm going to grab some white. Oh, I didn't get it very clean. Let's try that again. Okay. Some white and some red. A little bit of red. Mix that up. I want the color of bubblegum. That's pretty close. So now I'll come in. Oh, let's do this little one over here on the edge. This little side section here. This little patch. That's going to be pink. And then I'll do this one over here pink. But you can do as many as you want in whatever color. Now, if you want to mix it up after you get these all painted in, you decide you want to move a couple of colors, you have to let it dry all the way. But then you can come back in and paint over it and sort of rearrange where things are. For example, I think I need one more pink one over here. So I'm going to grab a little more pink. This guy's dry, so I'm just going to paint a little pink over that. Just have to make sure it's dry. Otherwise, you'll get a funky mess between your green and your pink. I'm getting a little bit of that here, but I kind of like the color. So I think I'm okay with it. Let's see. Now, if things start to get mucky like this, it's a good idea to just stop and get your blow dryer out. Hit it with a blow dryer. Let me show you. Sorry about the noise. Okay. There we go. Hit it with the blow dryer, and then you can come back in. See, that's much better. Now it's not blending, because when paint is wet and it meets other wet paint, they're going to blend. They're going to have a party and become a new color. But if it's dry, one covers the other up. Okay. Put a little more pink in on these other ones. You can see it's sort of like when you paint your nails, you put a second layer on in some lighter colors, and it just looks better. You get better coverage. Alright, now just a little bit of white here for the highlight. Remember, got to hit it right along that little edge. A little bit of brightness. And then our tail is just about done, or at least our scales are. How's that, huh? Let me bring it a little closer. These pinks are lighter than the ones we used here, but again, we can adjust that. Every time we do it, it's going to be just a little bit different. I have just a little chalk here showing. I'm going to wipe that off. You can see these little bits of chalk. Once your painting's completely dry, you can come in with a little bit of water and paper towel and wipe those right off. It'll be okay. So get your tail done, work on your scales, and come back when you're ready and we'll work on that flipper, that fin. Last little bit here of our fin before we start our bubbles. I'm going to put one more little bit of layer here and a little bit of highlight. So I want blue and green, that equal mix here. And then I've got some of this here that's got some white. And you can mix any of these up. You can use blue, you could make her tail pink, you can make it purple, but I'm going to use our base color and a lighter version. That's all we need. So whether your base color is the blue and green mix like I have, or it's pink or purple or blue, one darker color for the base, add a little bit of white for a lighter version for highlight, okay? So here's my base color, and I'm just going to fill this in again. Remember, you can use a little bit of water to help spread your paint out, make it go a little bit further. Now that my C is dry, I'm just going over that edge, trying to clean up that shape a little bit. I'm going to do one side and then the other, so I've started with the right. Filling that in with my base, the darkest version of it. Just getting right up to that edge. And then while this is still wet, we're going to do the same thing like we did with the scales. Take a lighter version, come along that top edge, and down. And we're going to let it blend and soften and just sort of streak a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put some silver lines on it later after it dries. But a few streaks here and there just to give it a little texture. Remember the long stroke we did from tip to tail? Let's do that again, because that will keep everything nice and streaky. There we go. Pretty good. Now I'm going to do the other side. Use your darker base tone. Come around the edge. Fill it in. And you'll see it goes much quicker with the second coat, right? Because that first layer is grabbing onto this one. And that makes everything have a little bit more coverage. And it just goes on a little bit smoother. More smoothly, which I think both are correct. All right, base coat's on, lighter color, along that edge. And then those long strokes from the tip down. Just like that. Us that little bit of texture. There we go. And that's it. I'm going to bring it in a little closer. Now you can add more highlight if you want. I feel like it does need a little bit more here on my left side. That little left section. Come along. Oh yeah, there. I got a little more white. That helped. There we go. Now they look a little bit more separate, these two pieces. A few little more streaks, if you like it. It's up to you. Sort of like nachos, pick what you like. Don't put what you don't like. Or a taco. Build your own. Okay. And at that point, I'm going to stop. Because I have been painting for a long time, and one thing I have learned is that the more I mess with things, the more likely I am to mess them up. So, go ahead, finish this up, let it dry completely. Remember, you can put it in the sunshine, or maybe you can use the blow dryer, but you want it to be completely dry so that you can move your hand all the way across it, and you can feel that it's dry. So take your time with that, and get your paint pen ready. And when you come back, we're going to use our paint pen. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, welcome back. So my canvas is completely dry. I can put my hand anywhere and nothing smears. But before I begin putting my bubbles and my outlines on, I want to remove any little bits of chalk lines that remain. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my paper towel, get a tiny little dunk in the water, and just very carefully and gently come along and wipe away, like an eraser, any little bits of chalk. Just so that they're gone. There we go. That's all that took. Quick and easy. So once you have your lines gone, we're going to use this silver paint marker that was in your kits to create our bubbles and all of the detail on our mer tail. So the first thing that you should do is, with the lid on, hold your finger on the lid to make sure it stays on and shake it. And after you shake it for a minute, you're going to start to hear this. You hear that noise? That little rattle? There are some beads or little tiny balls inside the marker where the paint is. And if you shake it, those beads move around and they mix the paint up to make sure everything's good and juicy and ready to go. We're going to shake, shake, shake with our finger on the lid, get it all shook up. And we can take the lid off. Now, I've used mine before, but yours is brand new. So the very tip of the marker part is going to be yellow or waxy colored. And what I want you to do is take a piece of paper and push and hold it down and hold it still. And we're going to let gravity do its job. And that paint is going to start to drip down toward that tip. And when you pick it up, you'll see the silver paint moving through the yellow part of the tip. And eventually, you'll get a little spot on your paper. And then when you can write with it like this, you'll know that it's ready. Now, one thing that you can do is we are going to start with our bubbles. So you can practice on your scratch paper how to make these little bubbles. And they're circles, but do you see how none of my circles are perfect? And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. We'll do different bubbles of different sizes, and then we're going to just take this and create a little parenthesis. That's going to be a little highlight that helps make it look round. You can see here we've got big bubbles, we've got little bubbles, we've got some that are so little they don't even have a highlight. And we can put them wherever we want. So I'm just going to come in and start filling in my space. Circle, parenthesis, and if it's really big, I put another little notch just to indicate how big that circle is, that little bubble. I'm going to keep going, just dropping them in wherever I feel like it. You can do a lot. See, that circle got a little wonky. That's okay. Filling this in. As many bubbles as you like. Here and there. I'm pretty happy with that section, so I'm going to move on, and you just move at your pace. If you're a little nervous about doing this, you can always sketch them in with a pencil and then go over them with your paint marker. The other thing is you may find it easier to lay your painting flat on the table while you do this part. And then your paint marker, you can really use it just like a marker. Here, let's make one go off the side there, just like that. Oh, that guy got really wonky, didn't it? But it's okay. They're bubbles. They're all going to be a little bit different, like snowflakes. And that was a pretty easy step. Let's bring that up so you can see all my bubbles floating up around my mermaid there. Once we get the details in here, we could even add one or two floating over her if you wanted to. All right. So take your time with your bubbles, and when you're ready, come back and see me, and we'll start working on the scales, okay? I'll see you in a minute. Still working with our silver paint marker. We're going to come in and outline our silver lines on our scales. So what I do is I just follow the edge and outline it. Just like I'm using a marker. You might find it easier, I said this before, to lay your painting flat on the table, and then you can write on it like it's a piece of paper. And you're using a marker. It'll feel really familiar to your body. Your muscle memory will kick in, and then your confidence will increase. So anything that you can do to make yourself physically more comfortable when you're painting is always good. We're just going to keep working our way around here, outlining these shapes with our marker. And that silver just pops right against those deep dark colors. It's just, I love silver paint. Actually, I think I love any metallic paint. Just outlining the edge there. We can outline that edge as we go along. Not filling anything in, just going right along those edges. Take your time. If you make up what you think is a mistake, don't panic. Keep going and let it dry. Once you've done the rest of them, when you come back and look at it, it may not look like a mistake anymore. You may change your mind about it. The other thing is, once it's dry, you can always come in with your whatever color you need to and paint over it, and then go back and do a little repair work. But I want you to work your way up from the bottom to the skinny part of the tail, getting those outlines done. And then when you're ready, come back. Oh, I gotta work on my posture. Did you see me all slumped over there? Ooh, gotta work on my posture. My mother would tell me to pretend there's a string coming out the top of my head, holding me up. Are you working on your posture? You should. Okay, let's start the tail when you're ready. I'm gonna do it now. Come along when you can. First thing I'm gonna do, just go right around the outside, just along that outer edge. I'm not doing anything on the inside part of the tail yet. Just the outline, working my way around. And do you see how everything just really starts to pop? That silver is showing up and doing its job. It really is. Once you have it outlined, what you can do is pick which side of the tail you want to come down in this curve. So they're just going to split a little bit. Bring that line almost all the way down to your last scale there. And then what I like to do is create these little veiny parts that sort of look like coral. And I'm just going to take 2 or 3 lines and go up toward the tip of that fin. And we'll do that on both sides. Just like that. And you could leave it at this point if that's what you wanted to do, but I'm going to come and just angle little curved lines off here, sort of like I'm making branches. And they can cross over each other or touch. It's your mertail, do what you want with it. But I like to just make them really natural and organic looking. If I don't try to put them any place in particular, they end up right where they're supposed to be. And yeah, I know that's some hippie artist talk there, but it's true. All right. Bada bing, bada boom. She's done. Or he's done, whatever you're doing. Let me pull it a little closer so you can see. Look at that. All shiny and shimmery. While you're finishing up, I'm going to peel the tape off the edge, so keep finishing up your tail. Don't mind me. I just want to show you what this looks like once we get tape off. Look at that. Ooh, nice clean edge. This is my favorite part of the painting. It's taking off the tape. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Let me get this last piece off. You can see your canvas is hard. Mine is a piece of paper. It's fabric canvas. And I just tape it on top of any other painting that I'm working on that's on a board. And then it gives me that nice clean edge all the way around. Now, do you know what the very last step of your painting is? Well, you must sign it so that everybody knows that it's yours. Claim it. You worked hard on it. And your paint pen is a great way to do that. Just come down to the lower corner wherever you decide and sign your name. One thing I encourage you to do is on the back, you can take a pen and write your name and the date that you did the painting. And as you progress in your painting practice and you do more and more, it's always fun to go back and look at what you did first and how much you've grown and how much better you get at it. So, I hope you had a good time. I had a lot of fun. I love painting mermaids. So, please come find me on social media. I'm Paint with Mel on just about everything: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We've got a group or a little community on Facebook called Paint with Mel and Friends, where we submit photographs of our work that we've done together and cheer each other on, give each other tips of advice, high fives on the internet. And it's just a fun little community of painters. Painters of all ages are welcome there. So if you have a Facebook, come hang out and drop us a photo so we can see how you did. And I will see you again next time. Go to the website, paintwithmel.com, pick out your next painting. Oh, and one more request. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because it's not just videos like this. I do 10-minute tutorials. I have a little 1-minute comedy series on Mondays where I show you all the different ways that I can mess up. And I just put up little tips and bits about painting. So come hang out there. You can make sure that you can get those videos when they come out. So it's been my pleasure to paint with you. I hope you had a good time. And make sure you send me pictures. Okay, you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.